You will travel along a 103-mile route through East Germany. This is the only road that the Allies may use to travel into West Berlin. At the start and finish of the journey, all Allied travelers are subject to identity check by Soviet soldiers at Soviet checkpoint Alpha and Bravo. If you are in difficulties, an RMP patrol will commence searching for you after 5 hours. Do not make any statements to the East German police. Do not allow injured Allied persons to be removed by Soviet or GDR ambulance unless absolutely necessary. You are now on the open Autobahn.
What you just saw is part of a British military video guide that shows rare real footage of transit through the GDR from Helmstedt in West Germany to West Berlin. Just months before the Berlin Wall fell, the Royal Military Police broke one of the main rules in the Soviet sector to produce it.
Photography is forbidden between Allied checkpoints. Keep cameras, binoculars, etc. out of sight.
The guide is meant for British military personnel traveling to West Berlin by car, where British forces kept a strong presence throughout the Cold War. In opposition to West German civilians who had to deal with GDR police and border guards when traveling to Berlin, Allied military personnel exclusively dealt with Soviet authorities. The following part of the guide highlights the single GDR regulation the British acknowledge.
We acknowledge East German traffic regulations, although only accept Soviet authority.
Transiting through the GDR had one basic rule: don't leave the designated route under any circumstances. The Soviets and GDR authorities wanted to make sure no one could sneak into their country via the Autobahn. The Allies wanted to make sure no one got searched, interrogated or abducted en route to West Berlin. This is why both the Allies and Soviets had one checkpoint at each end of the transit route, where travelers had to show their documents.
Before going to the Soviet checkpoint at one end and after leaving the Soviet checkpoint at the other end, you are required to stop at the appropriate Allied checkpoint, either Allied Alpha or Bravo.
While you might not be familiar with checkpoints Alpha and Bravo, there is a good chance you've visited checkpoint Charlie if you've ever been to Berlin. The video guide then makes sure to warn its viewers that German drivers might not always follow the rules of the road.
Traffic from your right should give way, but take care as this does not always happen.
Filming the Soviet checkpoints was highly illegal, which is why the RMP had to resort to these drawings. The guide then once again stresses that the British will not accept dealing with GDR authority.
The checkpoint should be manned by Soviet soldiers who look like this. If the checkpoint is manned by East German soldiers who look like this, you should either return to the Allied checkpoint or demand to see a Soviet officer.
What follows is quite Kafkaesque and reminds me a lot of the incredible video game Papers, Please. Also, make sure to take note of the importance of saluting Soviet officers.
When stopped at the zebra crossing, the person you have nominated takes the travel and identity documents. Approach the Soviet sentry, who will be standing close to the small hut on the left of the road. He will salute you. You must, irrespective of your sex, status or form of dress, return his salute. Hand your travel and identity documents to him. He will check your documents and once satisfied as to their accuracy, will return them to you and indicate that you should take them to the checkpoint office. On entering the building, you will see on the right-hand side, about waist high, a document tray similar to those in banks, only the glass has been painted over. Place your travel and identity documents in the tray. They will be taken by a Soviet officer or soldier for checking. When the Soviets have finished this check, the documents will be returned to the tray. Take them and check that all ID cards and passports have been returned and that passports have not been stamped. If they have, return to the Allied checkpoint. Also check that the travel document has been stamped by the Soviet official. Return to the Soviet sentry and hand the travel and identity documents to him. He will check the Soviet stamp and return all documents to you and indicate that you may continue your journey. He will again salute you. return his salute and return to your car and proceed. As you move forward, the sentry will give his final salute, which must be returned.
That is 3 mandatory salutes for those of you who are counting. After leaving the Soviet checkpoint Alpha, travel is pretty straightforward. The RMP just established 2 key rules here, one for laybys on the side of the Autobahn and one for rest stops, which are called Raststätten in German.
En route, you will pass numerous laybys, such as the one you can now see. You may stop at any of these to stretch your legs or rest. But if there are any East German police, or Soviet or East German soldiers in the lay-by, or any enter it whilst you're there, you must move out. You will pass 4 Raststätten during your journey, such as the one shown here. You must not stop at or use any of these Raststätten.
The RMP guide then gives some helpful advice on focal points for navigating the transit route, mainly crossing the river Elbe and then the halfway point at Ziesau. Traveling on the transit route was usually peaceful, even for West German civilians, as GDR authorities waived their sovereign rights on the transit routes. Still, Stasi forces were patrolling the routes in unmarked, often West German vehicles, and many rest stop and gas station workers were also part of the Stasi surveillance operation. Meeting with or talking to GDR citizens was strictly forbidden for West Germans. Not only the Stasi were patrolling the transit route though, there were also regular RMP patrols traveling in between Helmstedt and Berlin. Their main task was to help people who had left one checkpoint but not reported to the other one within 5 hours.
If you are in difficulties, an RMP patrol will commence searching for you after 5 hours.
Here's what the guide recommends military personnel to do in case of a minor or even major accident.
If you are involved in a road traffic accident, do the following. Minor accidents. Exchange particulars, make a quick sketch plan, and proceed. For major accidents, carry out the breakdown procedure. Do not make any statements to the East German police. Do not allow injured Allied persons to be removed by Soviet or GDR ambulance unless absolutely necessary. If necessary, request the presence of a Soviet officer using the incident card. RMP NCOs will come to your assistance.
Finally, this is what you should do if for some reason GDR police do dare to stop you.
In cases of other incidents during your journey, and if you are stopped by GDR officials for any reason, do not pay fines or tolls. Do not allow them to search your vehicle or person. Do not admit liability for any offence. Request the presence of a Soviet officer. If not allowed to proceed, stop an Allied traveller and send a message to the nearest checkpoint.
Fines should, if at all, only be paid to Soviet officers.
You may pay a fine, but have the receipt signed or countersigned by him. If in doubt, wait for the RMP patrol to find you.
Then the guide explains how to navigate Soviet checkpoint Bravo, and there's even some footage of the approach to said checkpoint.
You have now negotiated all 3 intersections. From here, it is a straight run to the checkpoint area. The approach is well signed. Move into the military lane as soon as possible. You will come to a short barrier. When this is fully raised, move forward to the Soviet checkpoint barrier. Stop and wait for it to be raised. Don't be alarmed if this takes several minutes. Once the barrier has been raised, move forward to the position indicated by the Soviet sentry before the zebra crossing. The nominated person only gets out of the car with travel and ID documents only. Carry out the same procedure as at the first Soviet checkpoint.
There's even some advice on where to park at the Allied checkpoint Bravo.
Park in the Allied car park, 30 meters short of the checkpoint. If this car park is full, you may park against the curb, but make sure you do not obstruct the Allied lane.
Military personnel are duty-bound to report any unusual events to a supervisor, in this case someone with the rank of non-commissioned officer or NCO. After that, they can begin their mission in West Berlin.
Report any occurrences or incidents to the RMP NCO.
The final part of the RMP guide explains what to do in West Berlin when a GDR or Soviet officer tries to approach or even bribe you, and why you should never, under any circumstances, speak Russian.
West Berlin is unique. It is the only location where servicemen and UK-based civilians travelling to and from the city by road have direct, face-to-face contact with the Soviet military personnel. It is therefore vital that any attempt to engage you in a conversation or trading for military items be reported to the checkpoint NCO at the end of your journey. Should you be spoken to by a Soviet or East German national in English or in a language you both understand at any time during your journey through East Germany, you must do the following. Remember as much detail about the conversation as you can, as well as the physical description, dress and rank of the individual. Remain non-committal throughout and do not agree to anything. Do not become overly nervous or aggressive. Once it is realized that you are not responding, you'll be left alone. And remember, you only attract attention to yourself by speaking in Russian to the Soviet checkpoint personnel, so don't do it. If you are approached at all during your journey, you must report the incident to the RMP checkpoint NCO and complete the short proforma provided. Be assured your journey will not be delayed in any way. If you're in doubt, then ask the RMP checkpoint NCO for assistance. Please, help us to help you.
Thank you for watching, please subscribe and help me reach 19,000 subscribers, and thank you to my loyal patrons Did Ikyopine, Brian Simpson and Needs More Cowbell for your support. Consider joining my Patreon for just $3 a month in the description below.